on all topics, Hogan. Right now, we kind of left off and wanted to ask you, why did Vince let Hogan go to WCW? What did he tell you about that?
Yeah, no, bro. I remember specifically. I was, the magazine editor of the time, and I remember having the conversation with Vince. And at that point, Vince wanted to position, and these are Vince's exact words. He wanted to position Hogan as the Babe Ruth of the WWE. In other words, like special attraction matches, whenever Hulk worked, it would be a big deal. You know what I'm saying? But, pick and choose, when he has these events. But Hogan did not see it that way. And Hogan at that time felt he still had a lot left in the tank. And he still, more or less wanted to be an active wrestler on the card. And Vince just wasn't looking at him at that point in time. And it was because of that disagreement that Hulk pretty much moved on to WCW.
Man, it's crazy to think, like, Vince thinking, like, it's all right, Hogan leaves. And eventually Savage leaves. So he's probably like, that ass has got to be puckering up a little. Like, oh, did I make a mistake here? You know what I mean? Like, you don't kind of think about it because he thinks that 38, 39, 40, these guys are getting older. He's like kind of thinking they're done or they're past their prime. He's kind of thinking he's going to do this new generation and build all these young stars. But those two guys, especially Hogan, had so much left in the tank that would end up really, really butting this, like literally almost putting him out of business.
Yeah, but we talked about this a little earlier in the first episode. Listen, John, Vince always believed no one guy was bigger than the WWE. Not Hogan, not Savage, not Austin. He always believed that, and he always had that mentality, because you're talking about a guy that let Hogan go. You're talking about a guy that let Savage go. You're talking about a guy that let Hall and Nash go. Yeah. That was Vince's mentality, was no star is bigger than the brand. He always thought that way, man.
But it's interesting, though, with Hogan, because he was kind of bigger than the WWF in certain – because Vince lost toy deals because they found out Hogan wasn't there anymore. Like, wait a second. Hulk, we're done with this toy deal.
And, bro, you know what's funny? You still got the Hulk Hogan effect today, because it goes back to Triple H telling Ryback there will never, ever be a John Cena. What does that mean? What that means is there will never be anybody bigger than the business. Yep. And by Triple H and the WWE taking on that type of philosophy, and they've held to it. And, bro, if you have that type of philosophy, that probably means you're never going to see another Hulk Hogan, because when you reach a certain point, they're going to put their thumb on you, because they don't want you to become bigger than the company. So when you look at where wrestling is today, bro, that he has a clear effect of the direction that the WWE has gone in 2025.
It is true, though, like when you think about Hulk, of like, he's kind of like what you want, like the Cena, the Austin, the Rock, the Roman Reigns, like that top guy. But you're right, like maybe they don't want to be Hogan, because the guy becomes so big, he gets so much power, and he's so famous that if you don't have him around, people are complaining, and then you have to pay him more money. Like, so yeah, there's definitely that like Hogan effect, if you will, of that, for sure.
Yeah, then he gets to call his own shots. Yeah. Hollywood's calling and knocking on the door and offering more money than he's making wrestling. They don't want to deal with that anymore.
So it is funny when you think about it too. When he gets leaves WWF, right, the end of the era there, the Hogan era is over. They're going with the new generation. They're going with Brett. They're going with like new stars. So he goes to WCW eventually after doing some acting and stuff. People can love it or hate some of his acting. I